Welcome to a demonstration of the Precipitator Knowledge System, which consists of the Precipitator Newsletter, Precipitator Abstracts, and the Precipitator Networking Directory. Now this covers electrostatic precipitators that are used for industrial purposes and not the two-stage precipitators used in residential. It does include the two-stage precipitators that are used in light industrial, such as fryers and restaurants and so forth, but doesn't get into the residential. The bulk of the information, however, is in the high voltage precipitators that are used in the power industry, cement, and many other applications. Let's look at the newsletter first. And we have been publishing this since 1975, I believe. So we're up to into the hundreds of newsletters that have been published, and all of them are accessible. And so you can go in by regulations and see what's going on the Industrial Boiler MACT here in the United States, and then there's an article about it. Then you can click on the details. You can learn more about the revision of the MACT relative to the furnishing industry. We get into a lot of the technical issues, and new precipitator optimization system is available from Neuendorfer, and actually you can from the system then go to a video recording that we have with Neuendorfer talking about this optimization system. So that also is available. And here's another way of conditioning the fly ash that is being taken from the precipitator, which of course is important. So we get everything from conditioning the fly ash before the precipitator with sulfur and other methods, ammonia, to make the resistivity better, but we also getting into ways to get the dust out of the precipitator subsequently. Mercury is a big thing these days, and so if you can use your existing precipitator to remove the mercury with activated carbon without using excessive amounts of activated carbon, then you can avoid adding a baghouse, which is a very big expense. So we do focus on the performance data that relates to removing the mercury with the combination of activated carbon and your precipitators. Of course, another aspect of that is actually using wet precipitators on the back end. So that's another thing that we get into as well. And people like Beth, they're here. They happen to be talking about their dry precipitator, but they also make a wet precipitator, and we're writing about their activities out of Germany. And so there's a lot of interesting things for both the electrodes and the collecting electrodes and the discharge electrodes. We're writing, in this particular case, about carbon nanofibers. Southern Environmental actually has a wetted fabric media on the collection electrodes, and that's one of the things that we're writing about as well. So we're trying to keep up to date with the latest information, and not only regarding the precipitators themselves, but how to handle the fly ash afterwards. And we do get into the utility industry pretty extensively. There's a lot going on with upgrading existing precipitators. There's precipitators all over the world that need to be upgraded to meet the new particulate standards that are going to be implemented in various different places. Here in the United States, precipitators are going to be required out in the utility industry to remove more particulate because it's going to be a surrogate for the heavy metals, and the levels are being set lower. So one of the ways, and this is, you can see, done by Hamon Research Cottrell here, is to provide replacement parts for an existing precipitator. You can add fields. You can combine the existing dry precipitator with a wet precipitator. That's one of the things that we recommend not be excluded from coverage. If you have to get very ultra-high emission levels, rather than just replace your precipitator with a fabric filter, you can use the existing precipitator to capture the fly ash and still make it saleable. And then you can capture the mercury in your scrubber, and then using a wet precipitator on top of the scrubber, capture the fine particles that were missed in the first precipitator. So that is one more alternative. So we'll just move on to one more newsletter to get you an idea of what's in the newsletters. We're tracking, as you can see, a lot of activities in China because they're the largest users of precipitators are in China. The largest suppliers of precipitators are in China. As I mentioned, wet ESP, here's one, for instance, that Beth has installed a wet precipitator in a steel mill in Alabama. Oak Creek is provided precipitators for its new power plant, wet precipitators. And the idea was to get the emissions as low as possible. So by putting a wet precipitator at the tail end, they assure that they have a maximum removal of sulfuric acid. And since 10 parts per million of sulfuric acid is equivalent to all the particulate you're allowed to put out, 0.03 pounds per million BTU, the ability to remove that in the wet precipitator becomes quite significant. The Smog Hog is one of these precipitators that's also used in a lot of commercial and light industrial applications. So we do cover those, and this happens to be in machine tool applications where there'd be a lot of oil droplets, and they're a form of the wet precipitator is essentially utilized. And the wood products industry is big in precipitators because of the problems with fabric filters burning up. Now, the newsletters is one, and by the way, you can go all the way back to 1999 with the precipitator newsletter, and then before that, though, you can even get to older material by searching the precipitator web, and you can go into it by any combination. So if you want to go in under WESP, for instance, see all the things on wet precipitators that happen to include the name WESP in them, you can see that there's 356 articles on that subject. But if you want to just look for WESP and Beth, then that would narrow the field. Whoops, I forgot to, if I put and Beth, it comes out a little bit differently here. So I'm going to go and Beth. So it shows the combinations where both Beth and WESP are mentioned in the same article. So this is very handy to look at it in this format. Let's go back then to the, out of this query, you can search by company name. So if you want to go in by Alstom, who would be a big supplier of precipitators, for instance, or you can see there's the air clean damper and people like that would be component suppliers that are dealing. So it's not just the companies here list the various different suppliers and end users and so forth. So you can go in and search either way. Ameren, of course, would be an end user, but Alstom, I just skipped it there. You can click on Alstom and you go to here and see that we have very extensive coverage of various different articles and things that are supplied about Alstom. And I'll talk to you in a minute about the abstracts, but we also provide abstracts of the articles, speeches that are being presented by these companies as well. So this is another way to look at the information. And let's get back out of the company newsletter thing, and we can search by SLEC code is another very useful way to do it. So if you want to go into wood-fired boilers, you can click on wood-fired boilers, and you can click on refinery acid mist or some very specific thing, and you get those articles immediately. And you can see the fact finders are the abstracts, the newsletter articles are the ones we've just been looking at here. You can search by keywords too, which is another good way, or you can search by geographic area. So you can see anything that happened in Alabama or China or elsewhere. So this happens to be precipitator activities relevant to Alabama, but you could do the same thing for Argentina as well. The precipitator abstracts is something we haven't talked about, but this is something you also get in this package, and it tells you what the article is about and how to provide access to it. Some of these articles we do keep in our free site. Some are available through our library, or they're all available through us one way or another. And here happens to be an article in Power Magazine on this Oak Creek plant that we were just talking about, a newsletter article a minute or two ago. But that is our abstracts, and again, these you can go back through the abstracts all the way, and of course we showed you the search engine as well, which is probably a more useful way to do it. Now these are our newsletters and the abstracts. We do also have the directory, so we would go down to the Electrostatic Precipitator Networking directory, and you can view all companies again, and so you would scroll down to some company you wanted to get more information on. So right here is a wet precipitator company, and Steve Jason, for instance, manages that precipitator activity and very knowledgeable about wet precipitators. He's been around for 20 years, and you get a hold of him at this phone number and talk about woodworking or even the first AES wet precipitator in the power industry, and he's the guy to talk to on that sort of thing. So it's very useful to go into your networking directory in that form. You can go in by a search. If you've lost track of Joe Smith, you can go in under Smith and then see here's Joe D. Smith. Maybe he's now at Peerless, and so you track him down that way. And you can go by country, and if you want to see what's going on in China with all the companies that are involved in precipitators there, then you can do it with this search. So these are all useful ways to go at this very big networking directory, which is included as part of the Precipitator Knowledge Network or system. It's a $500 service, and it's only $50 per additional people, and so you can have people all over the world subscribing to it. It's also available in a number of different ways. It's also included in our power plant air quality decisions. So this is a service that has all 4 newsletters in it: FGD, DNOx, it has the precipitator, fabric filter, and the monitoring, but it also has access to all the recordings, a utility e-alert that comes out weekly, and as a whole decision-making package with the decision trees for the power industry. So if you're not in the power industry, if you're an end user in cement, for instance, you probably don't need this, but if you're in the power industry, you can join Duke and Ameren and TVA and Vectren and City Public Service San Antonio and all these companies that utilize this system on a continuing basis. I'd like to thank you for joining us today. This is Bob McIlvaine. Welcome any questions you may have. And my number is 847-784-0012, extension 112. Signing off for now. Thank you.